Hey people, I'm fixing to blow your mind. I told you in that movie last week that I had cracked the Septuaginta code, and that led me to this Alchemy, and I cracked this code, and that led me to the Latin. It showed me how to read the Latin Bible, and it's gonna blow your mind when I show you what's in it. First, I want to thank the anonymous donor. There's a PayPal button on my page. And if you can't afford to, just sharing this to do your part. Maybe if 10 people see it, somebody will fund the cause and some. So don't run off. In just a short while, I'm going to have you reading this Vulgata Clementina better than your priest. And it's going to be in straight English. It's just a letter shift. But this Old Testament Greek, it was called the Septuaginta. And I told the story of, there's a couple different stories about how it got the name, but it's supposed to mean 72 agents that had translated this. But that's not true. I got to thinking about it a couple weeks ago, and the septum is 7, and it's to separate. And so the Jews use a lunar calendar of 13 months. And so if you divide 13 in half, you grab a hold of the 7th, and you'll have 6 on each side. So 7 is the separation, the half, a septum. The septum is the divider in your heart. The septum is the divider in your nose. And so the Septuaginta means to separate two. And so there's a couple more tricks to it. But what you're doing is you read in and you separate the last two, the XHAR, and the share, XHAR. The share is a word for land. Your share of land. Your crop share works the land. And so it's in the share. So in the Hebrew alphabet, the number 7 is the letter Zayin, and it's a knife. It means to cut. It's to cut off, to cut apart, to cut through. And then the chet is divide is 8. But in the Greek alphabet, they put the chet at number 7. So the 72 is the chet, to divide 2. Divide 2. Either language, to cut 2 or divide 2, means the same thing. So if you look at all the Christian art in the churches, you always see them throwing these hand signs, and all the artwork. Jesus is always throwing these hand signs here. Depending on what he's doing, he's got a different hand sign. And if you Google Jesus holding an orb, you'll see that every time he's holding this orb, he's always throwing this 2 sign. You see this orb and this 2 all the time. And so this orb here, this is the symbol for vitriol. So the ancient alchemists would use these symbols in their work, and it would keep them from having to write something out. They could throw a little scribble on the page. It was their form of shorthand. And they would be in their work. And the crystals of Mars are iron and water. But if you just Google vitriol, you're probably going to see this come up. And it's a couple different ways. You see it here with 2 C's. Then in the older club, it has 1 C, and it gives a little different hand sign here. It has a different meaning. But the face fixing, volatile, and the volatile fix 'em. So if we look at this newer symbol, On the top it has a mire. You see this on Quagmire's shirt, and it means acid. A mire, it represents a plant that grows in a mire. A mire is a quag, is a bog. It's a lowland where all the fertilizer from your fields run off, and the water that collects there is high acid. It's dark water. You see in a swamp, it's real acid. And then you'll see these words, that this is where the Victor Royal comes from. And you have your 7 planets: the sun, or the moon, and Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Saturn, Mars, and the sun. And then you see the line. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's red. The canton. This is the spur, and it's I talked about it on that Mississippi Flag movie a couple weeks ago. It's the canton. It means the union. And this is called a deuce. This is the flag of Armenia. It's up above Greece over there in wine country. And then you see these 2 hands, and they're both holding the 2 fingers out. So if you go to this book of Chirology, this is a good book. It talks about all these hand signs being used in the Bible. And you see the 2-2, the right hand is H to divide, and the left hand is symbol 2 or B. And so it's saying divide 2. They interpret that as to visit the interior terra rectificando in veins occultum lapidum. They say that means visit the interior of the earth, and by rectifying you will discover the hidden stone. But it reads closer to a Old English, and you separate the last 2 letters. So this is 2 visa. So visa is an endorsement or on a passport indicating that the holder is allowed to enter or leave. So this is saying is to permissions to travel. And then the R-A-I-N, the rain, the terroir. This R goes with the rain, but this reads terroir, the last letter here, the terroir. And so terroir is a French word, and it means all the qualities of the land and the atmosphere and everything that makes that grape grow the flavor it does. You know, it's everything in the land and in the air, and what wind's blowing by it, how it gets sun. Everything controls how that grape grows. And they know they've been doing this for a million years probably. To permissions to travel, the rain terroir. And then this AE here, it's called a diphthong. And so you can read all about it, and they're going to tell you some bullshit about how it changes the sound of the letter, but this is ash. This is old rune ash, and this was the god of Odin, the ash. That was the way you first wrote this diphthong. So that's pronounced ash, the AE. And so they say it represented this ash tree. But it was first written like this. This is the old Phoenician A, and the E for life, the powers of life. Aya was the god of creation in the Sumerian tablets. The Aya. And it finally worked its way out like this. So this is the rain terroir, the qualities of the earth, the ash, and so that's read Ashtar, Ishtar, Easter. And so this isn't rectificando, this is direct if I can. Direct if I can, to direct if I can. So a can is a person of that place, an American, a Mexican. Direct if I can. It's a person that can direct. A person of the place of the direct if I can. Directify. Direct if I can. Es, this, the S, this in vain. To mock the cult. The vain, having or showing excessively high opinion of one's appearance, abilities. And so the one with just one C is to connect from a cult. But this is actually to mock the cult. This one came later when they figured out what the 72 meant. To mock the cult from. So a cult is to give or to call. To call is to separate out, to pick the ripe ones, to call the good ones out, to call the bad ones out. The call mark. So the occult, them, em, the m, them lapide, them lap hands. And so they'll interpret this lapidum as a stone. But if the em goes on the front, it's them lapid, and you see that means a torch, the lapid, the lap hands. You know, and I got thinking, well, them lap hands, boy, that's what we do when we're sitting out by the fire and we're all passing the joint around. We're lapping hands. And you can see it on this when he's holding a torch or a candle. And a lot of people think this is a joint, but it's called a sachet, the French word for a little bag of incense. The torch and sachet. So what we're looking at here is a prayer to Ashtar. And you can see the little vitriol symbol here. And so Ashtar was a Moabite name for Ishtar, Easter, Inanna. Moabites, that's them that from around Jerusalem over here, the modern state of Jordan. So if I say this all together out loud, it might start storming down rain. But it's a prayer to Ishtar, to visa, to give permissions, to rain, the terroir, Ashtar, direct if I can. This in veins to mock occultum, to mock a cult of them lapide, of them of fire, of them of torch. So if you ever been to a Catholic Mass, you've definitely heard ashes to ashes and dust to dust. And you wonder, where is that in the Bible? I've never read that anywhere. And I know I haven't been a Catholic church in over 40 years, 45 years. But I know I heard it every time. And they say, well, it's not in the Bible. The phrase ashes to ashes is the first thing you'll find in a famous song by David Bowie. But it ain't in the Bible, although it sounds like a Bible verse and is often assumed to be one. The exact phrase ashes to ashes, dust to dust is found nowhere in the Bible. And well, that's not true. So I'll usually read on this Hebrew, but you go to the language here, and you can come down here to Latin, and it'll give you this, and often read out of this apocalyptic Greek to help try to translate these words, even though I know they're not correct. And this is the interlinear Hebrew that I read to help. But what I did, I copied all three of these off. But you can go to this Latin. And it'll give you an option for English translation. It's going to give you a little different reading than most of your Bible, most of your other Bibles. But I pulled this off. This line 4 through 9, and I put this Latin above the Greek and over here beside the Hebrew, and that's what I noticed, that there are definitely three different books and three different times. It's talking about different creations. But this first one, it's Odin. You can see him down here in the Garden of Eden. It's now the gone end in Odin. The gone end in Odin. And then in the Greek, it's the Parades, to connect from the Parades. Parades is different in the Parades in the Latin and in the Greek. But on the Greek, this is on para. You think a para is above, a parachute. They say it means beside, but it doesn't. A para means protection, the protection of shoot. Oh, I fell, shoot. Shoot is a fall. And so protection of die is what this is going on here. It's as those protection of die. They were in paradise because they had protection of die. So in the Hebrew, you've got one telling a story and one asking questions. And so in the Hebrew, these first men were the men of the Adama. They was giants. They was too big. They killed the mother. They was them they had from the Adama, the men from the past, the giants from the past. And in the Greek, they couldn't connect the soul to ekta. Ekta is what connects your soul. You know, the ectoplasma that the Ghostbusters was fighting, and they couldn't connect the soul. So in the English translation of the Latin, it starts with, "This is the story of the heaven and earth as they were created in the day that the Lord God had made." And this is the Latin here. So I pulled them both off, and they lined up pretty good. But I just pulled that off so you can see the story. But so the way I'm going to read this is I'm going to read everything, the last two letters, and then back up to it, unless it starts with a capital. Any word that starts with a capital, you read the last two letters, and that's a code to read all the way through it. And anything ending with M, I just learned this the other day. So I noticed the other day that all the final letters of the Hebrew are the ones with the big tail here. This is Tazadi and a final Tazadi. This is Pei and a final Pei. All they do is fold the bottom down. This is Ka and a final Ka. Nun and a final Nun. All they did was fold the bottom down. But I noticed on this M, when it was a final M, it looked more like a S. I used to confuse it with this S all the time. It's so close to this S. And so what that means is when you have an M at the end of a word, it's a S. That's why all the words ending with M, they say they mean plural. If you study Hebrew, that says plural, it's because it's a S. And so if it's a word you're reading backwards and forwards, that would be an M when you read it in front. When you come back, it's a S. So if this was a word here, it would be SN or MNS. But the final M is actually a S. So I've been reading that as a M for several years now, so I'm allowed to mess up. You have to catch me. So this is Ash is to Ash. Ash, I-S-T, is Tash. Ash is to Ash. Not so this generation. Like ash to Ashtar. Do quanta create. Do the quantity, the quanta create, not so. In need, in like denied, to of it fess, denied, didn't fess up to. In night of it fess. Use Dominus. Used O minus. It means use the O negative blood type. We're not going to die in the cruel wind this time because we use the O negative blood type. So according to Wiki, that nobody even knew about this till 1910. But I'm O negative, and it's dominant. It's we can give blood to anybody. We can only take it from O negative, and the negative part means it's RH negative, and it doesn't have the antigens of the A or B. And what that means is our blood cells will carry more oxygen to the body. It'll pick up more oxygen when it travels through the lungs. And so we work better at heights. We can work up in the mountains without getting sick. And we work better at removing contaminants. Nobody of O negative blood type has ever died from malaria, and we real low everything else. We just don't get sick, and we save a fortune in medical costs. We're just Dominus. And so now you know where the word Dominus comes from, through O minus, O negative. Dominus, us do some cash of, to matter. Dominus, we're due some cash. As a matter of fact, we save the government a fortune in medical costs. To Neo Mom Virgo, to a new Neo, new mom, a new mother, Virgo, of L, of tree, of trio, of trio gom, of trio gom. So gom is a C word. Conversation at sea can be done with flags or lights or in person. The trio, the trio conversation is the Trinity. To Neo Mom Virgo of trio gom antique, of the ancient, the three to speak of the ancient, antique. Where orator is a talker, where orit in ratir. So it's talking about astrology, the trio. To new mom Virgo of trio gom antiquum, where orit in rater, in the rate. Let me skip down here. I thought this was funny, but the superfism, them superfis, ashtar, them superfisher ashtar. It form of rigit, to rig it. It form of to rig it, us Dominus. Use deuce them hominum. Hominum is like an old name for. A hominum is old Latin name that's not used anymore. Invalid name. It form of rig it. It form of to rig it. Us Dominus. Used deuce them hominum. Use deuce them homin. Demolish. Demolish. Terra. To demolish the earth. Demolish. Terra. And so it was Ashtar that used to be the demolisher. Demolish the earth. And so they've been getting rid of the ones that didn't work out well, and they've been using the flu. Every 100 years they'll send another flu out, to kill the weak, and only the strong survive. Alright, I'm gonna cut this off here. It's getting kind of long, and I'll get more into that Greek story and that Hebrew story later. I figured out a lot while I was doing this. Alright, good day.